back to another episode of Ignite Your Power, the Kathy Mou Podcast. Today, we're diving into an important conversation for Endometriosis Awareness Month. So, one that so many women need to hear. If you ever struggle with painful periods, hormonal imbalances, or felt disconnected from your body, this episode is for you. I'm joined by my dear friend and fellow member of the Blissful Beauties Ascend community, Sophia Montes. Sophia is a faith-based holistic wellness coach specializing in hormone and anxiety regulation. She teaches people how to love themselves through the eyes of God, helping them cultivate self-awareness, self-control, and deep healing from within. Her mission aligns so beautifully with mine to nourish the mind, body, and spirit so we can live a more balanced and fulfilling life. In this episode, we'll be talking all about endometriosis, cycle syncing, and how faith-based holistic practices can support hormonal health. Whether you've been diagnosed with endo, suspect you might have it, or just want to understand your menstrual cycle better, you're going to walk away with so much knowledge and empowerment. So go grab a cozy drink, settle in, and let's dive into this powerful conversation with Sophia. So, hi, Soph, thanks for being here.
Hi.
That was a long intro.
No worries. I'm so happy to be here.
Yes, I'm just so honored to have you. Finally, we're doing this episode, and I really believe that empowering women is so important, especially about our health. And I know a lot of women struggle with this, so I'm so glad you're on today. If you can share what inspired you to become a holistic wellness coach and integrate faith-based practices into your work.
Yes. So my coaching journey's been since 2021, right? That's kind of when we finished our cohort together or whatever, for becoming coaches. And you've watched the whole journey yourself, but for people who don't know, I went through such a process of, well, should I do it on anxiety because I've had anxiety for a long time? Should I do it on loving yourself because, self-love is such a theme. So it was such a process of should I not? All this jumbled stuff. And finally, when I was in college out in the East Coast, I started, I think I listened to a podcast about cycle syncing and hormones and all that with Alyssa Vitti. I believe that's how you say her last name, who is like the queen of cycle syncing. She has a great app called Flow or In the Flow. And I just started learning so much about it. Her app was so accurate to where, it would track my cycle to where I would get my period the day that it said I would, or maybe just like the day after or before, which compared to other hormone apps, it was always like a week off. And I'm like, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
And so I just really started implementing that, I think, because I didn't know anyone when I went to college. I just put so much focus on myself and my hormones and watched my like cramps and acne and breast tenderness and all those PMS symptoms just really, really almost disappear completely. And it was amazing. So I created grocery lists for each phase and just became super pumped off of it. And all my friends were like, "You are so good at this. You need to coach on this." So that's how I got started with the holistic hormone aspect of it. I was raised in Santa Cruz, California, which, if you don't know, is very hippie wellness,
Yeah.
natural town. And my mom just raised me on herbs instead of Western medication, pretty much. And just like right now, I'm drinking water with chamomile tincture in it for calming.
Nice.
Um, I just really fell in love with wellness. I feel like I live and breathe it. And then in this last year of my life, the faith piece came into it because I mean, I've always been a woman of faith. I can't remember a time that I didn't believe in God, but I just was walking in my flesh a lot more throughout life. And, I was young and in high school and doing my thing. But in this last year, I did get baptized last April, and it really just changed a lot for me and my heart posture and the desires of my heart. And I just felt like, you know what? Somehow God has just happened to give me every client as a believer, and that spoke to me. So I'm like, maybe that's more than just a cool coincidence. Maybe that's what my passion is supposed to be. And I don't require people to be believers to be clients, but it is really awesome when it happens because we have that little connection. And I just felt like I really need to live and breathe that in my coaching as well, not just in my personal life. So
Yeah. So
there's my answer.
beautiful. Yeah, I love all of that. I love seeing your journey with all of this. And through it all, you're just becoming more and more authentically you. So it's just beautiful to see you blossom into that and being like so empowered enough to be like, I want to be this way and I believe in this. And even if you have doubts, whatever, you're following your gut, you're following your intuition, and you're like, this is it. And I see it when you're talking about these things, like you're glowing, you're so excited, you're so full of knowledge about it, and you're just so good at it. So it's just so beautiful. So thank you today for being here. I really want to talk about cycle syncing. So this is like a new hip term. So can you just break it down in easy terms of what is cycle syncing to begin with?
Yes. So women or in people born as women, bleeders, um, we have a cycle that it lasts around 28 days, and that would be a normal menstrual cycle. Now, when you hear menstrual cycle, you probably think, when you're bleeding, but it is actually a whole entire, pretty much the month, but around 28 days can be a little bit more or less depending on where you are with your hormones. But typically we say 28 days, and those get divided into four different phases. So you have the menstrual phase, which a lot of people like to start off as day one, because when you're bleeding, okay, this is day one. I can easily mark that. And that lasts 5 to 7 days, depending on what your cycle's like. And then you would move into the follicular phase after that. So that's about a week, give or take, after you are done bleeding. And that is basically what I forgot to mention in the menstrual phases, all of your hormones are kind of hitting their lowest. So you feel depleted, you're bloated, you might get bloated because your stomach or gut lining uterus is trying to protect itself in case you were going to get pregnant. Um, and so that's where you feel the just the crappy energy levels and all that because your hormones are dropping to the lowest. So then when you go into the follicular phase, those hormones are starting to build back up again, like progesterone and
Estrogen.
estrogen. Yes, like what's the word? And that's kind of preparing the follicle, the eggs to be prepared for ovulation. So then after that you go into ovulation and ovulation phase, which is around 3, 4, 5 days at tops. Our shortest phase, our highest energy, and and then that is when, you are fertilized, perhaps if that's something that you're pursuing, or, you know, sometimes not. But that's when that would occur, as we know. And then after that is the luteal phase. So that's kind of the body starting to deplete again of the hormones. That's really where you see the most PMS. Uh,
Yeah.
that's kind of where a lot of stuff is happening with the hormones. So things are going up, going down, kind of figuring it out. The body's trying to figure out, are we pregnant? Are we not pregnant?
Yeah.
And so it's your body really preparing for the bleed. That's why maybe at the beginning of your luteal phase, you might feel still pretty energized, pretty good. But then at a certain point, you hit that, oh God, I don't want to be around anybody. I don't want to do anything. I'm lazy, all that. And then you're either pregnant or you bleed. So cycle syncing is basically taking that cycle we go through as women and living in alignment with it based off of eating, exercise, lifestyle habits, love life habits. You can break it down in so many different things, but I don't know if that answered the
Yes,
question.
it did. That's perfectly well said because it's exactly how our cycle is with women, especially, us women not even understanding how hormones work in our cycles in general. But it's so interesting and fascinating how we do have extra energy in certain phases of our cycle, and it does break up into four sections. So do you think the best way to track your cycle syncing is through an app or like writing in a journal? Or say if someone literally doesn't have a regular period or something like that, what's the best way to really track this and track your own cycle so you can start understanding your cycle? Because everybody's different. Like everybody's not going to be exactly the same, but what is it that people can do to really figure out what their cycle is so they can get it down and to understand how they can utilize each phase and maximize their energy and their well-being, right? Because it's all connected.
Yes. I personally love the app just because it's easy. And if you have an iPhone or Android, like you can just go on there and ones like in the flow really help to be accurate. And she even gives you little pointers on there, like what foods to eat, what exercise to do, what kind of work stuff to do. So I personally find that amazing. If that's not really your vibe, then you can most definitely find books online, or just go search up on the internet, like a little bit more information about like how to keep up with a journal. I know that they sell journals for tracking your cycle because I know a lot of people will use that as a form of birth control, really, is to track their cycle to see when they are ovulating and when their period starts. Something else I wanted to say, the whole temperature aspect of it. And I don't know too much about this, but it has to do with the basal temperature. And you take your temperature,
Every morning, I used to do
right?
it because
Right,
I wanted to track my ovulation. So you would do
right,
it right when you wake up, and then you would just check your basal temp, and then you would, um, track it every day. And if it shoots up to like a certain degrees or whatever that is, temp, you'll know like, okay, it is your ovulation time, and then it'll decrease again. So it's kind of like a
right.
curve.
Yes. So that's another way that you can kind of look at it. But again, that's kind of, it's a lot to keep track of if you don't have the time and the energy.
Yeah.
Um, so that's another great way to do it if you're into that kind of thing, right? But I would say that mostly when you do bleed physically and you're not on birth control, or you have something that would hold you back from bleeding, then I would say apps are great. And then just also checking with keeping a journal of first bleed. Now, for people who don't bleed, it's a little different. And it's a little tricky, right? Because how do you gauge that? So I would really suggest speaking to a health professional first about that, kind of understand what you're going through. Do you have endometriosis? Do you have PCOS? Are you on birth control that holds you back from bleeding? Usually with birth control, I feel like I've never been on a birth control that uh, took my bleed away.
Mm.
Um, but I know that people say that they tend to feel PMS symptoms around when they would be bleeding. So I
Mm.
guess maybe that. The tricky part is also that when you don't bleed, or when you're on a hormonal birth control, you're not menstruating naturally. It's like a withdrawal bleed. So
How interesting.
it's very funky. And again, I haven't done that much research on that in particular, I guess because I mostly work with women who are like naturally
Yeah.
on a cycle, not on hormones, because that's just the easiest way to keep track of it, honestly. But definitely because I'm not a medical professional, um, I would say if you're not sure, definitely check in with them first.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that. It's so true. And of course, we're both not like medical MD doctors, so of course, but these are just holistic wellness things that you can do on your own to empower yourself, right? The more information you know that you believe you can put into action, the better it is. And just to understand cycle syncing yourself is just more empowering. I feel like when I started to understand myself in each phase and like why I would get frustrated at certain points in time or why I would be more emotional or why I'd be so tired. And just understanding it from that perspective, you're just like, oh, wow, I'm not crazy. Like, I am not just because I'm like that, right? And
Yeah.
most women have certain, especially during PMS, we have PMS symptoms. But when you start tracking and understanding it, you're like, okay, ooh, I'm in this phase. So you start being more lenient to yourself too, and you start loving yourself more so and giving yourself grace instead of being like so hard on yourself. So
Right. I feel like one other thing, if I can say, is it never hurts if you don't know where you're at and you don't bleed and you really are like can't figure out where you're at. Maybe your energy levels are always kind of the same. You can't really tell if there's a change in energy, like, because often another thing could be is maybe you notice there's certain parts of the month where you feel more alive and outgoing and energized, and that might be a sign you're in the follicular ovulatory phase. And then you get more sluggish during the other half of the month. And so that could be an indicator. But if you're really just confused, I would say gut health
Mhm.
is an important key to look into. Just because the gut directly affects our brain and so much of our body because of that, you can never go wrong. So eating probiotics and fermented foods, staying away from alcohol and caffeine and sugars, especially like refined, highly processed sugars and fried food, fast food, processed, all of that. Um, just really focusing on well, I won't get too deep into gut health, but focusing on gut health. If you don't know where you're at, gut health is always a good place to start.
yeah, I really believe that, especially women with endometriosis, we do have a lot of gut issues or IBS issues because it's all correlated.
Mhm.
And that's why it is important to focus on gut health if you have endometriosis. Do you believe that cycle syncing would help people with endometriosis?
Totally, because reduced pain, energy levels, and just better self-care in general. Cycle syncing, I like to think of it as a really huge opportunity to express self-awareness and practice self-control for sure. And that's kind of what I like to talk about within my own coaching, is this theme of self-awareness and self-control, because you're taking that moment to think, what does my body feel like? And when I put these foods into my body or when I do this kind of exercise, well, how does it make me feel? Good or bad? Or in between? That's self-awareness, just becoming aware of how you're feeling, how things are affecting your body. And then once you know that, right, you're like, okay, when I eat and when I drink coffee in my luteal phase close to my period, I have way worse cramps than when I don't drink coffee during that
Yeah.
time. Then you have to have that self control piece of, okay, next time this comes around, what can I drink instead of coffee so I can feel better? And that's still practicing self awareness, because then you have to try the different things, chicory, dandelion root, all the different things, and see how does it affect my bloat, all of that. So I feel like that's a self care aspect. Energy levels, just doing cycle syncing, especially the eating aspect, it's, well, everything, because there's certain times where you want to sleep more. Um, Luteal menstrual phase, it's okay to move your body still, of course, always, but especially in the menstrual, when you would be bleeding, sometimes sleep is the best exercise, and that's going to help your energy levels, and that's going to allow your body to heal through that endo, calm your body down enough, calm your adrenals, all of that. It's going to allow those to calm down and relax so that your body can work on healing itself and work on, handling what you're going through with your endo. And then reduced pain, because inflammation is a huge piece, as you know, and when you're eating in alignment with your cycle, it does really work to uh, help that inflammation to go down. And just balanced hormones in general are going to work. It just works for your body as a whole. So I would say for endo, those are three things that are very important, that come out of cycle syncing.
Thank you for sharing that. I truly believe that. And FYI, for all the listeners, Sophia helped, she was actually my holistic hormone coach for like 3 months. And she actually helped me get pregnant the first time. Well, not the first time, the second time, but then I got a miscarriage. But it really did help because you were teaching me about how your movement and eating certain foods in certain phases of your cycle is important. And I loved how you give everybody or gave me a list of like, these are the foods you should try to focus on during this phase. And then this is the movement that you should. And so, why is that so important for each phase, by the way, if you can tell the listeners?
Yeah, so again, the follicular ovulatory phase, you have higher energy, you have less of an appetite. Your body is going to take fermented foods a lot better, because it's kind of running on its own energy. You don't need a lot of food during that time. It's a good time to fast if you're a woman. Fasting can be Dr. Mindy Peltz. She talks a lot about fasting as a woman and what it's like to fast before menopause versus after menopause, postmenopause, and how, you know, during phases like the luteal menstrual phase, it's not so beneficial to fast because your body really needs carbs and it needs nourishment and it needs warmth and comfort. And that doesn't mean that, okay, let me go stuff my face with pepperoni pizza and mac and cheese with a bunch of processed stuff in it, but stews and steamed like fish and, you know, hearty, good sweet potatoes, so the body needs different things during different times, is what I'm trying to say. And often when we have cravings, we are craving something. It's just not what we might think. Like you're not actually craving a bag of Doritos. You're probably craving uh, maybe serotonin boost. Or if you're craving chocolate, hey, dark chocolate is a great thing to have. Always get a little dark chocolate in, no matter where you are in your phases. But if you're craving a whole chocolate bar, you most likely might need some magnesium. So when your body is craving these things, it is. It's just a little deeper than that, right? There's a lot of different things. Like I said, chocolate, magnesium, fried foods are usually, you're craving serotonin boost, which you can fill your body with leafy greens. And instead of feeling that crappy way you feel after you eat the fried chicken on your period, you're going to feel like, oh, actually, am I even on my period? I feel great. Like this is fine. Like I know I'm bleeding, but my body feels wonderful. And
Yeah.
that actually can happen. So eating in association to the phases just allows you to physically feel better and look better. The acne
Yeah.
goes away. I think I was starting to say about the follicular and ovulatory phase. Fermented foods are really good as you're like building that gut health, kind of preparing and restoring your body after the depletion
Yeah.
that happens during your bleed. So if you think about it, it makes sense if you break it down like, okay, if I'm bleeding and I'm losing blood out of my body and
Mm-hmm.
all my hormones are dropping to their lowest, when I come out of that space, I probably want to replenish myself a lot with like good vitamin C, a lot of citrus, immune boosting things. Carrots are great for your immunity and your hormones. So a nice raw carrot salad. Plus your body can digest raw things better during that time. Uh, Sauerkraut. I know you didn't ask me for the foods, but
Oh,
those are
that's
just
perfect. This is great.
some
The
things. And then like, cottage cheese, Greek yogurt, rhubarb, berries, chicken, eggs, and then as you progress, you're ovulating, you want to support your body for possible ovulation or possible pregnancy. Again, if like we worked on together, like if
Yeah.
you're wanting to support that, having like maca and there's just so much to it, but um yeah, I don't know. I think I might have covered the bases there, but let me know if there's anything I didn't answer specifically.
Oh, that's great. How about the movement aspect? So we touched on nutrition, and that makes so much sense because our body needs certain nutrients and minerals, especially at each phase. So it does make sense. But that's so interesting how fasting is so important for women. But I'm like thinking for people with endometriosis already are depleted in minerals and nutrients. So I was like, hey, is fasting actually good for women with endometriosis? I'm not sure. I never thought about it in that way. Because in general, fasting, I don't know what benefits it would have for people with endo, but I
Right.
don't
Well, because fasting can really help to heal the body when
know.
your body's not digesting anything. And I think that's a big aspect of fasting, aside from losing weight or clearing
Yeah.
your skin, which all comes with the healing part. But I think the biggest benefit that fasting can offer to us is allowing our body that time to rest and not be digesting anything, so we can just focus on healing. However, I haven't looked too much into endo and fasting. It might not be the best option, or at least not when you're trying to have a child.
Yeah. Okay. It's so
Interesting.
interesting. I really want to learn about that more, but this is really good stuff. So thanks for sharing. Okay, let's since we hit the
Yeah.
nutrition part, let's hit the, active or working out aspect or moving your body during each phase. So what
Yeah.
should you be doing?
So follicular ovulatory, again, I like to just put them like, it's like spring and summer and then fall and winter. So in that spring and summertime, when you're higher energy, coming out of the menstrual into the follicular, you can like, I think it's good to kind of take it slow as you're easing back into the high intensity workouts. But, hiking or, maybe jogging, swimming, dancing, doing fun stuff like that. And then ovulation is kind of where you're like top peak energy. That's like if you are a runner and you like to sprint, sprint. Uh, go go exercise to your heart's content, doing HIIT workouts, strength training, heavy strength training. And so that spring and summertime is a great time for all that. All the super high activity, high intensity, active, what have you. Run to your heart's content. Run, Forest, run. When you get to the luteal phase in the beginning, I would say you still might find yourself having enough energy to go for jogs or um, swim, some cardio things, but as you get closer to the menstrual, starting to slow down, be more mindful, taking walks more, Pilates, um, light hikes. I'd say surfing is probably fine because I live in a very surf spot. If you like to surf or snowboard or ski, whatever, I would focus on that still more in the spring and summer, but maybe the beginning of the luteal is fine. And then, yeah, just yoga, stretching, walking, sleeping as you enter into the menstrual phase because your body is in such a depleted place. And especially when you're bleeding, you want to give yourself grace. And, if you have a little bit of a slip up where you eat something that maybe isn't, I didn't eat my salad. I didn't eat my like super healthy food. Maybe I went and got pizza. Maybe I ate 5 slices on accident because that's where I'm at today. You know, it's best to just give yourself grace for that moment and love and not say, oh, I need to go run 3 miles on the treadmill right now, because that's going to make you feel like trash. Um, Stretch, put your hand on your womb because your uterus is like literally going through a lot, shedding. So, um, what are some good? Yeah, I would just say stretching, light Pilates, nothing that really overly works the ab region because it's getting close to the uterus. So why would you want to like put more pressure on it, put more force on it? Just really loving, even self-massage. I don't know if we could call that movement, but in a sense, kind of stretching your body and massaging your uterus and like your legs maybe, I don't know, just sometimes I get leg kind of cramps around
Yeah.
my period, and it's just giving yourself a lot of extra love and take baths and again, not that that's a movement, but it almost is equivalent to that in
Yeah.
that time.
I love those self-care things and the tips that you gave about each phase, which is perfect because, like you said, it totally makes sense because when you're in your, you know, phases where you have more energy, you're gonna do the hit workouts, you're gonna do the running or, lifting heavier weights if you're one of those people like me who love lifting weights. And then during menstrual cycle, like go easy and maybe do yoga instead of like lifting weights because it will help support your energy levels and your hormones. So that's amazing. So I know you are a faith-based, you believe in God and the Word of God. So how does faith and spirituality can be a powerful healing tool? So like how do you incorporate faith-based practices into your wellness routines for those dealing with chronic pain or hormonal issues?
Yeah, the thing that's really cool about having that faith is, I mean, there's so many things, but when it comes to pain, it's like, instead of focusing on the pain so much or just going and taking something for the pain, you have prayer and you can surrender that pain. And it really gives you the opportunity and intimacy with God to have Him heal you and have a miracle come about. So, um, maybe you're cramping really bad. And the cool thing is that we are given these spiritual gifts, and one of them is healing, the gift to healing. And so I've heard people say, and I personally have felt kind of heat in my hand before, and I just like pray, you know, work through my hands to heal me right now. And I'll like place my hand on my uterus, say if I'm having a cramp, and I might feel that heat in my hand and feel that heat on my uterus, like weirdly, like it's probably energy, right? Because we all are energy. And but like that energy of God that's like coming in through your hand. And I mean, you you're like, okay, great. It's like it's not even really there anymore. And that's not only a miracle feeling because like how did
Yeah.
God just heal me through my hands of this cramp without Advil or Midol or, you know,
Yeah.
taking a bunch of turmeric or putting CBD balm on me
Yeah.
myself. So it's a miracle. And also, I mean, it's just cool to learn. It's cool to get introspective and see like what you can do with God. And um that also goes for anxiety, I would say. Aside from pain, like I have had anxiety for a long time, and that's why it's something that I feel like I've kind of taken from like beauty from these ashes because I've had it since I was like 7. And I always say like everything that got me through my anxiety was lavender and Jesus. And
Oh.
because I would just be in Trader Joe's having like a panic attack, and my mom would be like, "Have you spoken the name of Jesus?" Like there is power in that name. And I would just be walking down the aisles. I remember so specifically one time I was having so much anxiety down the frozen aisle in Trader Joe's, and I was just like, okay, Jesus, 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 like over and over again under my breath, like walking by the hash browns, walking by the Mexican food. Then I realized I was on the next aisle and I was like, oh my gosh, I have no more anxiety at all. Like it's just gone. Like I don't feel anxious anymore. And I was literally about to have to like go stand outside and like go touch plants because that's my go-to. As a little anxious girl, I'm like, let me go hold the leaves and like pray. But yeah, just seeing those miracles and seeing that love and peace that makes no sense is my one of my favorite things about my faith is just peace in the middle of absolute chaos, in the middle of absolute like mayhem in the brain. And like a lot of that is like spiritual attack, like anxiety and pain and all that can be spiritual attack, as real as it is. And so combating that with like the truth of the word or just prayer or listening to worship or being in community with people, that is just such an awesome way to use that in these healing as a healing tool. Um, and yeah,
Oh, that's amazing. I love that. I actually never heard you talk about like your faith in that way, which is so beautiful because you said certain aspects of it, but then it makes so much sense when you talk about it, like going down the aisles and thinking of like what Jesus, words or listening to worship, etc. So, wow, I learned something new about you today. Love it.
yeah, I know. Well, I try not to like talk about it so like over the top with people because I don't know, I never want to be like pushy about it. But I think that's something in this last year that was like, okay, well, I just had a conversation with you about recently about like, I don't want to have to hold those things back necessarily because you're not holding back from who you are. And
Yeah.
we shouldn't, let's be authentically us. And so that's, I hope I never am making people feel like I'm pushing it on them, but just sharing my story. And
No,
that's so special. I think your story is the first thing that you can share with somebody, even before the gospel, pretty much, because people learn from relatability and they connect to that. And that's important.
yeah, I love that. It's true. And I definitely do not think you're pushy at all. Like you are doing your own thing and you're just explaining your experience with how you handle certain situations and it's beautiful. And God and Jesus has helped you along that way. So that's your journey, you know? It's beautiful. So thank you for sharing all of that. I love that. So anybody who is faith-based, like, you can reach out to Soph to talk more about this stuff too as well. Which is, I love this part of you though. It's like truly a piece that I never really knew, and I've known you for what, 4 or 5 years now? So that's pretty crazy.
I
Oh,
know. Wow. It is so special, and I'm learning so much. And my therapist said something really cool the other day about, she's like, well, having faith gives you this extra amount of introspection in your life because what you're praying about often is usually what's going on in your life. So if you're always praying for patience, you can say, okay, what do I need to be patient about? And why is patience an issue for me? Or why is it like, you know, what can I look more into patience about with myself? And I thought, that's really cool. I'm just learning so much from my walk with the Lord, and it's constantly amazing. I mean, I had a great talk with my mom about it last night about just like all these things. Like, I don't know. It's so beautiful, and I just really pray that it can come out of me in a very authentic and beautiful way, and that would help so many people.
yeah. You're living out your life purpose and what you're meant to do in this lifetime, which is beautiful. So I know stress, let's kind of switch gears now. I know stress is a huge thing in our lives right now, but stress can actually trigger flare-ups for people with endometriosis since it is an inflammatory disease. What are some mindfulness or self-care practices that help in managing stress and promoting hormonal balance that you have?
I have always, 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 like I said, had lavender on
Hmm.
in my hand, in my purse, in my back pocket, in my front pocket. Lavender essential oil, you know, a lot of people sell them. I like doTERRA's oil, their little roller, because it's nice to like a little travel one to keep on you. You can just rub it on the palms of your hands. I rub it behind my ears, on my neck, on my wrists, so I can smell it, and so it also seeps into my skin, because it's a very relaxing herb flower, and it's also you can also drink it by tea. Um, I would say herbs are a huge modality for me. So lavender, lemon balm, otherwise known as Melissa, hops, chamomile. Those are probably my top ones. Valerian, which also can help with sleep, but I say like valerian. I just put a little bit of valerian tincture into my water. It smells like feet a little bit, but if you can plug your nose or get past that part, um, Oh my gosh, anxiety, like stress just seeps out.
Wow.
Like it just gone. CBD, I love CBD oil or salves. Just rubbing on your shoulders and on the I like to put it on the soles of my feet because that's like it absorbs really well down there and really quickly. Uh, Taking baths, taking walks, stopping, just stopping and being still. There's a lot of moments in our life where we can't go take a bath or go buy ourselves flowers or, get our nails done, or, maybe we don't have the money or the means or the time to do a lot of these self-love practices, but you can always take a moment, find yourself somewhere, even if it's just in the bathroom stall at work or at a coffee shop, and just stop and close your eyes and take a couple deep breaths and like mindfully like
I'm gonna do that now.
yeah, everyone just anyone listening, watching, whatever, like I want you to actually take a deep breath right now and just feel that weight come off.
Just even one breath, my neck is like already loosened up a little bit.
Right. Totally true. It's so crazy how much just one breath can
Yeah.
help. So just stopping. Stop what you're doing, stop your thinking, and just take a breath. If, you are a faith-based person, I think it's great to have your little verses or scripture in your mind or on your phone, whatever, because they're beautiful words and they say great things and they tell you how you're loved and how, praying that pray away the spirit of anxiety or depression or pain, um, all of that. But yeah, I would really just say stop. Just take a moment. I call it a sliver of Sabbath. So, um,
Yeah.
and a sliver of whatever you call it if you're not of the faith, because Sabbath is considered more of a religious thing, um, or sabbatical, whatever. A sliver of just stopping and maybe really tuning into your senses. If you're not in nature, then maybe, there's like the white noise of a fan or something. Like try to find something that is peaceful enough to you, something you can connect with your senses of what you taste or see or smell. Just becoming present in that moment and slowing down, taking a deep breath. And I promise you will feel better.
Yeah. Thank you so much for all those amazing tips. Like honestly, that breathing tip was a game changer. Do you feel like journaling and like meditating would also help, or these other avenues of mindfulness things to help with stress?
Yeah, yesterday, funny
Yeah.
enough, I never find the time to journal. I don't know what it is,
Mm.
but I was sitting at work yesterday and it was slow and I journaled 4 pages. And I noticed it's a theme. I'm like, I need to journal more because every time I journal, I end up writing like so much, which means I must have so much going on up here. So journaling's great. Meditation's great. Stretching is even good. We hold a lot of tension and stress in our hips or, shoulders, wherever. And so letting out that energy, just moving it around, that's also super helpful. Um, and a fun one, I will say, if you can, if you do have the means or the opportunity, doing cold plunges, jumping in the ocean,
Really?
jumping in if you have a cold plunge like little pool thing. I know they have like portable cold plunges, or if you have one on your property or at a gym, those are awesome. Even in the shower, just turn it on to the coldest. It might not be like officially a cold plunge, but it's, it's still enough to shock your system enough, and it just makes you feel awesome. Like it sucks for a second. Oh, rivers, lakes, anything that you can get in a cold body of water or under cold water for, you know, I don't know what the recommended amount of time is. I think it's good to start with less time at first, but doing that is awesome. Just really shocks your system and wakes you up and like just makes you feel better. Just, I don't know, it's like you get this high after, and it's so cool. And so there's so many benefits like with digestion and stress, and so much more. And saunas as well. Saunas are great for so many reasons as well. So those little like fun kind of luxurious wellness practices, those ones are super great too.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. I love saunas more than a cold plunge. I'm just such a wuss when it comes to cold, like being cold. I'm such a wuss. I can't do it. I'm like, ah!
Yeah, Wim Hof, he's a cool guy. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he's like the Iceman or whatever, and he like leads groups of people through a breathing technique and training to go in like snow, freezing waters and swim trunks and cold plunge in that. And you have to look him up, Kathy, if you don't know him, because
Yeah,
he
I don't.
you're gonna think it's so cool. And his breathing exercise is really cool too. He has it on YouTube for free, and I used to do it all the time, especially during COVID. But yeah, I gotta do that again soon. It's like 11 minutes long, 3 rounds, breathing exercise, and you definitely feel some stuff going down.
Wow, we should definitely do something like, like you
Yeah,
leading that. That would be pretty cool,
it would be fun. We
right?
we
We
for
should.
sure need to do that.
That's amazing. Self-awareness and self-control are key to healing. How can women become more in tune with their bodies and recognize early signs of imbalance?
That's so good. Like I said earlier, those two things are so huge for me in my work. Um, I think a good way to practice self-awareness at first is just actually, again, like the breath, everyone right now, just kind of tune into your body temperature right now. Are you warm or feeling cold or maybe neutral? Just like pay attention to where your body's at right now. Are you comfortable? What's that temperature looking like?
I'm like a little cold.
Me too. Comfortable, but a little cold. I could be
Yeah,
wrong.
yeah.
And what is your feeling like right now? What's your emotion? You feel content? You feel a little irritated, maybe?
I've been a little irritated, um, but I'm just tired for sure.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, right there. Just 2 easy practices.
Wow.
You found out 2 things about yourself.
Wow, that's so true. I don't even think like I was even understanding or processing because we don't take time to do this self-awareness. That's good. That's really
Yeah.
good.
So just checking in with yourself like that, and obviously you don't have to do the temperature thing, but it's kind of a fun one that
Yeah.
allows you to really feel. Um, but when you're doing things, so trying to just remember in moments where maybe you're in traffic, how do I feel right now? Do I feel okay? Do I feel frustrated? Do I
Yeah.
feel like I'm having a great time because I'm having a dance party in my car right now? You know? Um, and likewise, when you're maybe at a dinner with friends or taking a bath or something more obviously enjoyable, how am I feeling right now? And you can always, once you get used to kind of checking in with yourself like that, you can always take a next step. Like maybe you start off by saying like, oh, well, I feel good right now. And then maybe you do it a couple more times and you're like, okay, well, I feel good, but what does it really feel? Well, it feels delicious. It feels comforting. It feels cozy. Feels yummy. Like you can start to open up with new words and you can say like, oh, well, I really like feeling like this. And then on the other side, well, I feel irritated. Like, why do I feel irritated? Like, what is it about this? Like, just asking yourself, getting deeper into it. And that will help you in yourself just to say, like, when you might have PMS. Um, well, I have a cramp right now. At what level is it at? You
Mm.
know, what have I been eating? What have I been putting into my body? Am I drinking a lot of alcohol? Have I been drinking coffee? Have I been eating a lot of sugar, greasy foods? What if I take one of these things out?
Mm.
What if I take the next thing out? And then you start to see, like, okay, how do I feel now that because you'll notice pretty quick. It doesn't take this is not something that you have to wait like a month or 3 months to feel the results of, you can do it on your next period.
Oh, wow.
Like you can notice what maybe for me, I think for a lot of people it might be coffee because um, the way that it affects our hormones can really cause inflammation and pain and usually gives us the cramps. Um, Among other things, but I think cramps are a big one for coffee and caffeine, but you can kind of gauge that with green tea and whatnot. But noticing that, and so once you become self-aware in that of what kind of things are starting to make me feel good, what things aren't, then that's where the self-control aspect comes in of, well, maybe I allow myself to eat these things when I know they don't make me feel good, and you're just going to keep feeling crappier. So just practicing that, well, maybe I won't this time. And it becomes becomes so easy. It becomes like, sometimes you allow yourself to do it and you're like, whatever, I'm ready to reap the bad, not rewards, but reap what I sowed. And you take it. But gosh, I can't even tell you, like, it's so cool to find replacements. And that's is something that really helps you get through that.
That's amazing. I think it takes a lot of determination and wanting to really understand yourself to do all these things. Like, yes, as a coaches, we can preach and then we're like, yes, this is what you're supposed to do. But I feel like a lot of people struggle with the doing action part.
Mm.
And this is why I love how you break it down so easily. Like you don't have to make it so grandiose or so extreme or crazy. You make it easy for people to break down to practice just one or simple things every day.
Yeah, because it doesn't all have to happen at the same time. And it's not. We as coaches know that the best way to make changes is by taking those small steps and then adding another one when you feel ready. You don't want to push yourself. You want to give yourself so much grace. And also, that's a great point, is you have to really want it. Like, if
Yes.
you're not ready for it, if you don't want it, if you don't really want it, it's not going to happen. And that's why we tell coach, or as a coach, it's like we with clients are like supposed to have that first conversation and say, okay, like, is this something that's going to work? Do you really want to be here?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because we all do, right? But how bad do we want it?
Yeah.
How bad
Exactly.
do we want to see our lives change and our feelings change? And, you know,
Yeah. It's true. So the last question though, before we end, is if listeners could take away one key message from our conversation today, what would you want it to be?
I would think that it would be just lean into self-awareness, lean into lean into you more and take it as like this last piece we were talking about. Just take it step by step, take it slow, give yourself grace and listen to yourself. Listen to what you really want. Like you know what you want and when you want it. All you have to do is listen. That's such an important aspect. So, stopping, slowing down, listening.
Love that so much. It's so true. But yeah, doing that, taking action, guys, I think that's the biggest piece right there. We can preach all we want, and Soph has such amazing tips and tricks for really getting to know yourself and to do it in a loving way, but taking that action. So if you do listen to this episode, guys, go take one action she says today and just apply it, and you will see such great benefits. But last but not least, last thing, where can the listeners find more about you or connect with you?
Yes, so I have my Instagram, which is Miss Sophie Montes with a period in between each word. So Miss period Sophie, the PH, period Montes with an S at the end. And then from there, I have my link tree with my website and everything. My website is, I believe it's Sophie Montes at payhip.com. Um, don't quote me on that. I don't know the exact
Okay,
URL, but
I'll put all your links below so the listeners can find it easier too if they want to. But
these are my best places.
awesome. Thank you so much for today and spending this time with me and giving all of your amazing knowledge because you are so wise for your age, by the way. Like people, yeah. Yeah, you're definitely young. I don't want to expose your age, but you're definitely younger than me. And yet I still always learn so much from you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. All right. Bye.
Bye.